Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. It's good to see you here. In our last talk, we were looking at the idea of pratyahara, talking about the eightfold yoga path. This is one in a series, so thanks for joining us today and spending about 10 minutes. I hope I don't take too much of your time. I know everyone's very busy. In our last talk, we were talking about the idea of pratyahara. This is a Sanskrit word. And I discussed this in very sort of broad terms in a non-technical way, because you can talk about the idea of pratyahara or anything else on the Eightfold Yoga path as being very specific to a technique. Or you can think of the yoga system as a path, as something to be applied in your daily life. And in that case, this is not simply a technique. In the West, we like to think of everything in a technological way. We like to break things down and learn how to do them so we can repeat them again and again and get the same result. So if the end result of yoga is to have a peaceful mind, then we want to understand, well, what is the technique by which I can do that? And I think Western culture is very much geared to this point of view, so that everything is seen in terms of a technique, from love to work to playing music to anything else. It's all about the technique. And if you can learn the technique, then you can be a big success. So you can think of pratyahara as part of a technique that you can apply in your yoga exercise itself. Or you can think of the whole yoga system as applying to your daily life. How can I improve my daily life through this kind of practice? And a practice and a technique are very different concepts. So the idea of pratyahara, in terms of practice, it means giving up what's unfavorable to your spiritual advancement. And that's a kind of a general meaning. And you can apply this to many different things. Giving up bad habits, leaving aside what's unfavorable to your yoga practice. And of course, in a more technical sense, you can apply this to the technique of meditation. And in that sense, in a more limited sense, if we apply this to meditation technique, the idea of pratyahara means to leave aside distractions or to withdraw the senses from external phenomena. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna uses the example of a turtle. He says that just as a turtle withdraws his limbs within his shell, so the yogi withdraws his consciousness from the senses and their stimulus. So the idea of pratyahara is the idea of withdrawing the mind from the senses. And this is really key to proper meditation, or to focusing the mind. But we talked about pratyahara. The next step in the Eightfold Path has more to do with focus. So if pratyahara means giving up unfavorable things, and in this sense, particularly, giving up distractions by withdrawing the mind from the senses, the next step is called Dhāraṇa. And Dhāraṇa really means to hold something together, to focus, if you like. If you've missed our earlier discussion, just to go back over the Eightfold Path, there's yama and niyama, which are the do's and don'ts, or trying to balance ourselves by correct practice. And after achieving some kind of balance, we're ready to go deeper. We're ready for meditation. So again, this is not just a question of following some technique when we sit down to meditate, but the idea is to try to regulate our lives so that we're at least on a more human level. We're leaving behind animal practices, if you like, because the real human goal of life should be a spiritual one, as it says in the Vedanta Sutra, atato brahma jigyasa. Atato, now. Jigyasa means inquiry. So now is the time to inquire into the nature of spirit. And what does it mean by now? Well, the commentators agree that now means now that you have the human form of life. So, let's say that we've accepted a certain amount of regulation in our life, a certain amount of discipline. Our next step is, how are we going to meditate properly? So we want to align ourselves by sitting properly. We find a harmonious asana and perform pranayama, which means to breathe correctly. So we breathe. And even so, our mind is still distracted. We have 101 million things that we're thinking about every day. So we try to clear the distractions by withdrawing the mind from the senses, or pratyahara. So we've done asana, yama, niyama, pranayama, and pratyahara. So now we come to the sixth part, the sixth aspect of the Eightfold Path of Yoga. And our next stop on the path of Eightfold Yoga is called Dhāraṇa. Now, you may notice there's a similarity between this word, Dhāraṇa, and the word Dharma. Well, they both come from the same Sanskrit root, which is dhrit. And this means what sustains. Dharma means what sustains us or what holds us together. And it's often used in the sense of religion, because what holds you together and what keeps you going, you could say that's your religion. Now, dharana is a little different. It means holding the mind together or having a balanced, sustained mind. In other words, you could say that dharana means concentration or focus. An example of focus can be found in the Mahabharata, when Dronacharya is teaching the sons of the Pandavas the skill of archery. He takes them out into the forest and he places a wooden bird. He has one of his students place a wooden bird high in a tree, and the wooden bird has a tiny eye made of ivory, beautifully decorated. And then one by one he instructs his students, all right, that's your target. And he says, all right, hold the bow, now focus, and beginning with Duryodhana, he says, what do you see, Duryodhana? And Duryodhana looks, and he says, well, the sky is blue, I see the tree, I see the tree branches, and Dronacharya tells him, stop. Bhima, you go. Hold the bow. Pull the arrow. What do you see? And Bhima says, I see the branch of the tree, and there's the bird. And Drona says, all right, the whole bird? Yes, I can describe it. Well, it's a beautiful handmade bird. What do you want me to say? All right, forget it. Arjun, hold the bow. All right, focus. What do you see? And Arjun says, I see the eye of the bird. Yes, that's the target. Do you see anything else? No. Do you see the tree? No. Do you see the branch? No. Only the bird? Only the eye of the bird. And Dronacharya says, good. You understand. You can shoot. Very good, my boy. So, the idea of Dhāraṇa is the idea of focusing or holding the mind steady. And we understand this. We focus on work, we focus on money, playing sports, getting a girlfriend, having a good relationship. But this is different kind of focus. In yoga, our focus is on the living self, the Atma, the soul consciousness within. And even this is a primitive level. We'll talk about that later. But at least focusing on consciousness should be our goal. This is the eye of the bird, so to speak. And how do we discover the soul within, or the consciousness? Different philosophers like to play around with the idea of the mind-body problem. René Descartes, modern philosophers try to pretend that consciousness doesn't exist, even while it's the source of all your thinking. So how does consciousness become intuitive? How does it become self-evident through meditation? Well, consciousness, the Atma, becomes self-evident as soon as you still the different thought processes of the mind. So in the Dhāraṇa stage, we have an intermittent experience of the inner soul, but our problem is our awareness of soul consciousness continues to be interrupted by thoughts, desires, images of past and future. It's very difficult to avoid thinking about our past mistakes or worrying about what faces us in the future. And so at this point, mantra meditation is especially useful to help free the mind from unnecessary burdens of materialistic life. The mantra helps free us from ruminating over the past or brooding about the future. The mantra helps us to intuitively realize the eternal by freeing us from past, future, and even the present. So this idea of Dhāraṇa meditation is really an initial stage of becoming aware of the self. It's a kind of midway point between ordinary consciousness and deeper meditation, where we begin to focus on the Atma, even while the mind is still dealing with a certain amount of distraction. Now, since the Atma is a deeper state of reality than the mind, it's very external to try to experience the Atma with the mind, which is what some people try to do in meditation, and they become very frustrated by this because the intelligence is metacognitive. So, with your intelligence, you could try to analyze the mind trying to experience the soul. But this is very strange. This is something like going outside your house and looking in your window to see if you're home. So this kind of metacognitive analysis interferes with meditation, and it should be left aside in the deeper stages of meditation, as we shall see in this concept of dhyan, or constant meditative state. We're trying to experience the Atma intuitively as self-evident reality, even while the mind is still busy. So by the help of the mantra, we still the mind, and this enables us to discover our own inner consciousness. So the Dhāraṇa level, it's kind of a way station. We're wavering between trying to still the impulses of the mind and the impulses of the senses, and still very much in the metacognitive stage, where the intelligence monitors the mind and wonders, is this sort of meditation working? Our mind is busy thinking about, should I get a sandwich? Should I talk to that pretty girl sitting over there? We hover between inner peace and outer anxiety. We're not quite there yet. Mind is still telling us, I'm cold, I'm hot, I'm hungry, this is boring, let's do something else. Our intelligence works on a higher level. It says, no, keep trying, this is good for you, focus. We're wondering, is this a good idea? We're conscious of the act of meditating, and our intelligence weighs the value of this kind of focus against so many other things we might be focusing on. So Dhāraṇa, this particular stage, involves the attempt to go beyond metacognition to a deeper intuition of the self. Let me give you an example. If you've ever tried to juggle, you'll find the mind trying to organize when to catch and when to throw. But as long as your mind is busy analyzing the catching and the throwing, you'll drop your balls on the floor. You can only juggle when you stop thinking about it. And this is true of many different skills, from driving a car to playing the guitar to speaking another language. You have to get in the zone, so to speak. As long as you try to stop and analyze how to speak French or how to speak Chinese, you'll be tongue-tied. You have to somehow immerse yourself in the moment and get in the zone. And then you can master a language. And this is true of language, music, mathematics, art, athletics, and even archery, as in the case of Arjuna in the Mahabharata. So, as you can see, Dhāraṇa is an advanced beginner stage of yoga, but it's still an intermediate one. And as we become more advanced in what I'm calling here yoga vision, it will become clear that this is really a new way of seeing. It's not simply a physical or even mental meditative practice. This is really what's meant by opening the third eye. But even in the stage of Dhāraṇa, the third eye is still not quite open. Our vision is hazy. There's a glimpse of light in the darkness, but we haven't quite arrived. The next stage on our journey through the Eightfold Path is called dhyan, or meditation. But we'll talk about that next time. Thanks for tuning in. This is Mahayogi. Peace.